Hello and welcome to Better Life Today. I'm Jeanette Stark, and on set with me today, a very special friend. We've been friends for many years. I would like to introduce to you Cheryl York. Actually, last year I learned that your name is Sherelle.
Yes.
And so it's, I'm still stuck kind of calling you Cheryl, and I think a lot of people are, but welcome, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. And either one works for me.
Good, 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 good. Well, I mentioned that we've known each other a long time, and I know a little bit about your story, but tell me about yourself. Where were you born? Let's start there. Let's start at the start.
Well, I was born, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
My mom had served in the Army. She was a WAC, and she met my dad in the Army. She was a staff sergeant. He was a private.
Okay.
They got together, and she had a difficult time having me. So, of course, she spoiled me rotten. And I was an only child most of my life.
Wow.
We did have a foster child for a couple of years, but most of the time just me.
So an Army brat.
Well, the war was over when I was born,
Okay.
because I was born in '46.
Did you move around a lot?
We moved from Baltimore to California
Okay.
when I was 8.
Okay. You have a very special memory of something your mom would do to you, with you as she tucked you into bed each night. Tell me about that.
She would get down on her knees next to me, and I would get down on mine, and we would say the Lord's Prayer, and we would bless, well, of course, I would bless anything that came to my mind, my friends, my family.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the age of 4 or 5 years old, most of the time it was just my stuffed animals.
Yeah, whatever was important.
At the
Yeah.
time, yes.
Was your mom a Christian then? Did she attend church?
Not all the time, just kind of sporadic. She really didn't attend. She tried to with me. We went to a little country church for a few years, and then we moved to California. For some reason, we stopped going. So from the time I was 8 until, probably 20 years ago, I never attended church.
Wow. But you have those early memories of kneeling by your bed.
Yep.
And I like to think that built a foundation that you built on, even if it was years later, the foundation was there.
My mom always taught me to talk to Jesus, and in my mind, as I was growing up and getting older, it was always there. It was always, he's your friend, you can talk to him. Never out loud, I was never comfortable with that, but always in my mind.
Yeah. Tell me about Larry. How'd you guys meet?
We met in shop class in high
school?
school.
Wow. That's amazing.
And he helped me with my project. I was making a set of salt and pepper shakers, and he helped me with that. And I was 14 at the time.
Wow.
We dated for a year and a half. He taught me how to drive,
Wow.
and we had a lot of mutual friends. And we decided to get married when I was 16.
Wow. And look, all these years later, what year was that?
1963.
63. Wow. My parents were very young when they were married too. They were married in 1957, but mommy was 16 and dad was 18. I think back then it was okay to get married early. It seems like it was a little different feel than today. People wait a little bit longer to get married, but back then it was more common, do you think?
I think it was more acceptable.
Yeah.
Especially in high school, there was a lot of marriages at the time.
Yeah.
Some of them, for different reasons.
Yeah. You told me that you had started working pretty much full time by the time you were 23. What did you do? Let's talk about that.
Oh, I started working out on a loading dock at May Company.
Wow.
And made some friends there, made a beautiful lady that she was my first influence after my parents on the Bible and Jesus. I used to pick her up. She had a lot of health issues, and she always talked to me about the Bible. I may not have been a willing listener at the time because I was in the world, but it must have stuck somewhere within me.
She did her job, which was planting seeds.
Yes, very well.
When you say on a loading dock next to water?
No,
Oh, okay.
where all the merchandise came in, and then we had to market.
Oh, okay.
that was just my first experience.
Okay. And tell me about children. Did you and Larry have children?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Our son was born when I was 17, almost 1 year to the day of our anniversary date. And then at 21, my daughter was born. Our daughter, not mine.
Okay.
So we had 2 children.
Nice. And grandchildren?
We have 3,
Yeah.
and we have 2 great-grandchildren.
Let's go back to your work experience. You didn't always work on a loading dock.
No,
Yeah.
I had a friend that worked at Avco. It was a finance company at the time. They used to have, you know, finance companies where you could go in and get loans for high percentages. Mm-hmm. So I started working there, and I worked enough to where I got to be the manager of the branch. And it seemed like all the jobs I had, I always wound up being management,
Yeah.
high stress.
High stress management.
Yes,
You have something in you that could carry that load, I suppose.
I suppose.
Yeah.
They must have seen something that I don't see.
Yeah. Well, because I've known you and Larry for so many years, I know a little bit of your story. Some of it is very heartbreaking. Let's talk about your son. I think the year was 1983 when he was diagnosed.
Yes, he had met a girl in high school, and they had fallen in love and wanted to get married. And we said okay, and her parents said okay, and they were trying to plan a wedding, and things got complicated because her parents were divorced, and there was some arguing. So one day, Gordy, our son's name was Gordy, he came to us and he said, "Mom, we want to get married, but let's just go to Vegas and do it. It's too much drama." Mm-hmm. So we said, okay. So we got in the car, all of us. Our daughter was the maid of honor. Went to Vegas. They got married. And while we were in Vegas, he started getting sick.
What were his symptoms?
He had a cough. His chest hurt. He just said, "Mom, I don't feel well. I think we should go home." We were planning on staying 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. So we went home. By the time we got home, we had to take him to the emergency room. They did some x-rays, and they found that his heart was so enlarged that it was pressing on his lungs, pushing them outward, and he couldn't breathe. They flew him to UCLA because he was so ill.
It's urgent.
Yeah. Diagnosed him with leukemia.
Wow.
He had the childhood leukemia. As an adult, it was very rare he was 18 at the time, which they considered an adult. It was very rare for an adult to have the childhood version of leukemia. They just bombarded him with everything. And within 2 days, they told us he wasn't going to make it.
My goodness.
But he did. He was tough. He fought it for 3 years.
Wow.
And he was in remission twice. They got him in remission. He was written up in the medical journals because his white count was so high. He was so sick. They had never seen it before.
My goodness.
So it's basically it. His wife left him. She couldn't take the pressure.
Oh my. That's a lot of heartache.
Yeah, for him.
I bet it was.
It was really hard.
When you were given that, in the beginning, when you were given that diagnosis of, what, 10% chance of living, how did you and Larry handle that?
We just, everybody faces things like that differently.
Yeah.
But myself, I kind of pushed it away and blanked out and just said, whatever's going to happen, it's going to be God's will.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
And we prayed, even though, we weren't going to church. God was always there.
Absolutely. He is always there.
And he made it through that, and he was a strong boy, very strong.
So he would go into remission, you would have hope, and then some symptoms would come back, or?
Yep, that happened twice.
Wow.
And then Larry actually was the bone marrow donor because they couldn't do anything else for him. The drugs weren't working, nothing was working for the leukemia. So they wanted to do the transplant, the bone marrow transplant.
Was that the experimental treatment that you
Yes.
told me about?
Because at the time they didn't have the donor registry like they have now,
Okay.
where you can go into the registry and find a match. They tested our daughter, and she was a closer match than Larry was, but she has advanced asthma, and they wouldn't take the risk of her under anesthesia and surgery
Wow.
because she was only 12.
Wow.
Well, she was 14.
What does taking bone marrow, what kind of procedure is that to donate bone marrow?
They go into your that bone in your back. I don't know what it's called, the large bone on your hip, and they puncture it over 100 times and pull the marrow out.
Wow. That had to have been painful for Larry.
And
But
he
as a father, he would have done anything to save
would
his
have.
son.
And he did it twice,
Wow.
but it was experimental. He wasn't a perfect match, so it didn't work.
And your son passed away when?
In March of 1986,
1986. Wow. Where were you guys living then?
in Simi Valley in California.
Wow. That story always saddens me, and I know as a mother it's sad for you too, because there were so many times of hope, and like we've beaten this, and then it would reoccur. Well, we're going to hear more of Cheryl's story, her conversion story, how she and Larry kind of left the world and came into church, and we'll do that right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Better Life Broadcasting is a viewer-supported Christian media ministry that offers streaming programming via apps on various devices. Please visit blbn.org to support Better Life or to get more information. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello and welcome back to Better Life Today. My guest today is Cherelle York, and we've been talking about some of her early years, meeting Larry and having children. And I just wanted to back up. 1986, you lost your son, but it wasn't just your son you lost that year. You lost both your mom and your dad.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, fortunately, my son got to say goodbye to his grandpa. He never got to say goodbye to his grandma. She died after him. But my dad had 2 or 3 strokes and a heart attack. He just wasn't well.
Yeah.
He passed away about 3 months before Gordy died. He died in January, Gordy died in March. My mom died about 6 months after that.
Wow.
She had inadvertently turned her heater off. She lived in a mobile home, and she got hypothermia. And at that time, we didn't know that she had horrible cancer all through her body. So when we took her to the hospital, they found it out. They operated on her, closed her back up, and said there's nothing we can do for her, and she passed away.
My, so much heartache, Cherelle.
Oh, that year,
Yeah.
I must have been a robot because I don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people would tell us a couple of years after our son died that we did this or we did that with him, or we went here, we went there. Larry or I, neither one remembered it.
My goodness.
It was like we blanked out,
Yeah.
just went by routine.
I think that's the beauty of maybe how God created us too, that little, or at least allows us to have that coping mechanism where, I don't know, otherwise how could you possibly handle all of that grief,
Yeah.
you know? Well, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
This life was not meant for death. You know, God did not want that. It's not a part of the original plan, and I know someday soon, and I know we both believe that He's going to make that right.
Yep.
Well, let's go back to your, talking about your jobs a little bit. You'd mentioned stress more than once.
Yes.
And I know a lot of times in work-related, stress-related, in the world, people will turn to drinking to kind of, you know, buffer that, maybe go out after work with friends and have a cocktail or two. Did you find that to be your experience?
Yes. I worked for a mirror door company where they manufactured the sliding mirror doors. I worked there for 10 or 12 years, and it was a major drinking company. I mean, we went after work, we drank until we closed the bars, went out to breakfast, went home, took a shower, went back to work.
Oh my goodness.
This was like maybe 3 or 4 days a week.
Wow.
And, you know, we wouldn't sober up till 11 or 12 o'clock, even though we were working. And then we would just crash.
Yeah.
Still
Sleep
finish
for
the
2 or
day.
3 days.
No, we'd finish the day out and then we'd start over again.
Wow. How long did that go on?
10 or 12 years.
My goodness.
Yeah, I considered myself pretty much an alcoholic at that time.
Yeah.
Looking back on it,
Yes.
at that time I didn't think I was. I thought I was just having fun.
Right. And I think a lot of people in that sort of situation, and in my own experience, you don't think of yourself as an alcoholic. In fact, when you're in the middle of drinking, that's a bit of an ugly word.
Yes.
But you're right, you're just partying, you're having fun with friends, and you don't realize till later what a deep hole you were digging, and how much of an alcoholic you have to be in order to drink that amount of money or that amount of booze all the time. Let's talk about your boss in Las Vegas.
Oh, my adorable boss. I
Yeah.
loved him.
Yeah.
When we moved to Las Vegas, I had worked for Larry's cousin, had the same type of business that I moved on to with this other man. And I got the job through Larry's cousin, and I was the manager of the company, basically.
Okay.
You know, I hired everybody, I did the books, I did the customer service. And this man happened to be the general manager of that company, and he wanted to start his own company. So he told me, he said, "If I start my own company, will you go with me?" And I said, "Definitely." It took him 2 years to make the decision to make the move. But the company that we were working for, Larry's Cousins, he was not a very good manager and he was going bankrupt. So this other man, his name was Roger, made the move to go on his own, took me with him. And he was a drinker when I first went to work with him, but he treated me wonderfully. I mean, there was no stress or overtime work, and it was a small company at first. It was just the two of us.
And what were you doing now?
At that time, it was tile work.
Tile work.
We were installing tile. Well, not me,
Yeah.
but the teams, the crews were installing tile in new homes, in the bathrooms, in the kitchen, and some flooring.
Yeah. What kind of influence did he have on you?
Oh, major. He was one of the first people that actually invited me to go to church with him. He
Had he stopped drinking, or was
he had stopped
Okay,
drinking.
okay.
I had been with him for 10 years.
Okay.
And about the third or fourth year, he decided that just wasn't a way of life for him. He didn't want to do that anymore. So he joined this church, and he invited our family to go, and we went. And it was a really good experience. In fact, the first time when I went in the church, I sat there and cried because I knew that's where I needed to be.
Yeah. You could just feel it in your bones.
Yep, it was like I had come home.
Yeah. It seems to me, kind of looking back over your experience and knowing a little bit more than even what we've shared here, but God has put a Christian in your workplace at every junction.
Every job I've ever had.
There's been somebody there to talk to you and, you know, as we mentioned, plant those little seeds in you. I think that's pretty amazing.
Even the drinking companies,
Yeah.
there was influence there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, it's now 2011. You and Larry have moved to Apache Junction, Arizona. We know that was a God thing.
Yes.
What happened there?
Well, we decided we were going to do camp hosting and travel. So we signed up for camp hosting through the federal government. And we wound up having a break, so we had a cousin that stayed in Apache Junction, Arizona. She found us a place to stay, and we stayed there for the winter, because it's really hard to do camp hosting in the winter.
Yeah.
And she came to us one day and she said, there's a seminar on Revelation. Would you guys like to go? And I said, well, I would. I've always been interested in Revelation. I had heard things through the years. And I asked Larry if he would go, and he says, well, I'm not really interested. Well, of course, my cousin said, well, Mac's going, which was her husband, and Mac won't go unless you go. And I want Mac to go. So Larry agreed to go. We went through the whole 6-week seminar. At the end of it, he asked, he says, would anybody like to be baptized? And I just sat there, and Larry took my hand and went, we do.
Wow, that is amazing.
And this is a man that I had to drag there.
Yes,
And we were baptized together in the same baptismal.
that's amazing. God is so good.
Yep.
Just to see how He has led in your life.
Just always there.
Yeah. When did you move to Oregon?
We moved here 10 years ago. In March, it'll be 10 years. And we had been camp hosting for a few years and loved it. And we stopped here to see Larry's aunt. And
Grants Pass?
well, in Rogue River,
Oh,
actually.
Rogue River, okay.
And she was just really, really stressed. Our uncle was very ill, and actually he had passed away the first year we were here. But she asked us if she found a place for us to rent, if we would stay and help her. Well, the place right next door to her happened to be available, and we rented it on a month-to-month, and we said, well, we'll try.
Yeah.
We will stay just because of you. We will stay and help you out. Well, then next to us was another couple, and one Saturday I was outside and they were all dressed up. He had a suit on, you know, she had heels and he had a really nice dress, beautiful lady. She just passed away. And I said, are you guys going to church? And they said, yes. And I said, are you Seventh-day Adventist? And they both said, yes, we are. Would you like to join us? And I said, well, not this week because we're not prepared, but we'll go next week. And we came with them to 9th Street and attended there a couple times. And she had worked at the thrift store here through Dorcas. She had worked there. And she had asked me if I would like to work there and volunteer. And I said, okay, just one day a week though. So Magnolia was there. She was running the store at the time, and we started talking, and she says, well, my son-in-law really needs a bass player, because I had told her Larry had been a bass player, and he used to sing, and she introduced us to
Kip Bradford.
Kip Bradford.
Pastor
her
at Gateway
son-in-law.
Church.
Yep. And Kip was just delighted, and he says, well, can you come to our church? And when we went there, we just felt so at home because it was so relaxed and so nice. And Kip was not the pastor at the time.
That's right, yeah.
In fact, I think Randy Hill was.
Okay.
But Larry started playing in the church band.
And he's there to this day.
10 years.
Well, I think your path is just amazing. God planted Christians along your way. Your mother gave you that foundation of kneeling and praying when you were a little girl. And then when you moved to Rogue River, Oregon, He plants you right next to a Seventh-day Adventist. Well, I've loved your story. Our time is up. If anyone watching right now just has questions about God and maybe can feel that little inner tug, what would you say to them?
Listen to it.
Yeah.
Listen to it strongly. Don't ignore it like I tended to do at times.
Yeah.
I mean, it was there, but I didn't really accept it because I was in the world, and what was more important to me was my career and getting ahead, and just listen to it.
Yeah. Act now.
Yep,
We're not promised tomorrow.
that's right.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for watching. We hope you've been blessed today. And remember, God is at the door knocking on the door of your heart. He wants you to open it. And if we open it, He will come in. And I promise you, the world will look dark and dim when that happens. We hope you've been blessed. Remember, Jesus loves you, and He's coming soon.